Good morning, everyone. We are on our second week of our new message series, which Father Michael started off last week, saying the series we titled Harvest Principle. Father Michael talked about how Salem County is so much farmland. And he said as he drives around, he notices the cornfields and the wheat and the apples and the cows. And he even said that he likes to stop and talk to the cows. Well, Bill Singer and I weren't so sure he was right about that. He didn't know if he was telling the truth. So we decided we were going to follow him on his daily routine this week. So cameras in hand, we took off and followed Father Michael this week. So on Monday, we stopped too, our first stop, and there he is, talking with the cows. He wasn't lying. So we thought, well, maybe that's just a one-time thing. So we followed him on Tuesday. And obviously, Father Michael is this cow's favorite human being. So we tried one more time. We followed him again on Wednesday. And there he is, talking with the cows. Well, Thursday is his day off, so we thought we'd give him a little privacy. We didn't follow him on Thursday, but we followed him again on Friday, and this is what we discovered. Apparently, the cows have made Father Michael an honorary member of their herd, gave him a cow fit, and an honorary celebratory glass of milk. So Father Michael is doing such a great job of communicating with the animals, Bill and I thought maybe we should change his name from Father Michael Field to Father Michael Doolittle. Excuse me. So what is the harvest principle? Father Michael said it's you reap what you sow. You sow corn, you reap corn. You sow cucumber seeds, and you reap cucumbers. Well, in the Old Testament, the Israelites were exiled because they sowed the seeds of disobedience. Another principle Father Michael mentioned is that you reap what you sow, but it is always greater. The more you plant, the more you reap, for good or bad, for better or for worse. Well, in the next few weeks, we will look at how we can better plant the seeds that will offer great rewards in this life and for our heavenly reward. So today, I want to share with you the harvest principle of character. We can use the word character when we are referring to somebody, but depending on how we use it, it can mean different things. Believe it or not, throughout my lifetime, people have called me quite the character. I mean, really. Just because I have always enjoyed having a good time messing around with people, playing practical jokes on them, having practical jokes played on me, there's any reason to say I'm quite the character. I enjoy humor, both verbal, physical. One woman I used to work with even told me that I was like a cartoon. I can't imagine why. But we can use the word character to describe a role played by an actor. Whether the character is fictitious or an actual person in history, the actor takes on that persona. I remember once I met a Civil War reenactor who was playing the part of a Confederate colonel. No matter how hard I tried in our conversation, I could not get him to break character. It was kind of annoying, too, when he kept on calling me sir. But the word character I want to talk about today is described in the Britannica Dictionary as the way someone thinks, feels, and behaves. St. Basil the Great said, "A tree is known by its fruit, a man by its deeds." Just as we want our trees to bear good fruit, we want humanity to perform good deeds. Good deeds happen, and when people have good moral character. And character begins to develop when we are children. If our parents are examples of good character traits, teach us right from wrong, the importance of good manners, how to treat others with dignity and respect, attend Mass as a family, we will hopefully grow with a strong moral character. If, however, our parents don't teach us anything, leave us to our own devices, and exhibit bad character traits themselves, there's a pretty good chance that we will exhibit the same type of character. As the saying goes, as the twig is bent, so grows the tree. But this is not to say that everything is black and white. After all, how many parents have said, "Where did we go wrong?" Or perhaps they said, "We didn't raise them to act like that." Raising a child in today's society is a great challenge, especially for parents if both of them are working. St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, who was a parent of 5 children herself, said, "If I had to advise parents, I should tell them to take great care about the people with whom their children associate. Much harm may result from bad company, and we are inclined by nature to follow what is worse than what is better." Parents may do their best to monitor their child's activity and with whom they associate, but there are so many outside influences in this technology-driven world that it is difficult to keep track. Influences include Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and others that expose our youth to predators, bullying, hatred, violence, destructive meetups, and more. Not to mention your child's friends, who could seem nice when you meet them, but are a completely different character in reality. Raise your hand if you remember the character of Eddie Haskell from the Leave It to Beaver show. Good morning, Mrs. Cleaver. Don't you look nice today? You've probably heard the saying, "It takes a village to raise a child." When I was growing up, everybody knew each other in the neighborhood, and the parents watched out for each other's children. Unfortunately, with families now moving more frequently, neighborhoods aren't as tight-knit as they used to be, and you might not even know your next-door neighbor. All this is to say that despite their best efforts, parents who are doing their best to raise their children with a good moral character might not have success. Conversely, there are those people that have had a poor moral upbringing that turned out to be model citizens. Nothing in this world is perfect. The rules aren't followed 100% of the time. People can change, for better or for worse. 2 examples of a person who changed for better. The first one is Saul the rabbi, who was a murderer of Christians, who became Paul the apostle. Another is St. Augustine of Hippo, who led an extremely immoral life and then was a heretic before he converted to Catholicism. And he wrote, "There is no saint without a past, and no sinner without a future." Good or bad, character seeds were implanted in us from our youth. But it is the choices we make as adults that will determine our character. As was mentioned last week in Father Michael's homily, the basic harvest principle is you reap what you sow. So what are these good character traits that we have desire for all people to exhibit? If you were at Mass on All Saints' Day, you would have heard several of them taught by Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount heard in Luke's Gospel. For this message series, I would like to add a few more, each one a behavior demonstrated by Jesus himself. The first one is humility. There was no one more humble than Jesus. Everything he did and everything he accomplished, he gave credit to his Father. Jesus would say that by himself he could do nothing, and everything he had came to him from the Father. And nobody likes a braggart. St. Vincent Ferrer said, "Whatever you do, think not of yourselves, but of God." Jesus was kind to those who were poor, sick, to the widows, and to children. We too should be kind to all we meet. It could be someone who is lost and just needs directions, or perhaps just something like holding the door open for somebody. St. Sebastian said, "No act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted." Closely associated with kindness is compassion. How often throughout the gospel stories do we read about Jesus showing compassion? He showed compassion to the blind beggars, to the lepers, to the widow who lost her only son. And even though there was times he was trying to go off by himself so he can restore himself and pray, and people followed him, he didn't shoo them away or get impatient with them, but instead he showed them compassion. Do we show the same compassion to immigrants who are trying to forge for themselves, by any means possible, a better life for their families? Would we do any less? One of the things lacking in this instant gratification society is patience. We want what we want, and we want it now. Call to mind the saying, "Patience is a virtue." Jesus demonstrated patience many times, especially with his apostles. And if anybody had cause to be frustrated, it was Jesus. Jesus was honest in all his encounters. He told things the way they were. To the scribes, Pharisees, and Sadducees, to Pilate during his trial, and most of all to his apostles, especially about his suffering and death. If we are honest in our relationships, a bond of trust is developed and strengthened. We must keep in mind that the bond of trust is hard to establish, but easily broken. Even though there are many more character traits that could be cited, the last one I want to mention is forgiveness. Jesus forgave those who came to him in faith. He forgave the woman caught in adultery. Most of all, he died for us, asking the Father to forgive us of our sins. Forgiving those who hurt us can seem impossible at times because it is easier to stay angry at someone. We must forgive as Jesus forgives, unconditionally. As he told his apostles when they asked him how many times they should forgive a person, 7? Jesus said no. Forgive someone 77 times 7 times. The more we sow the seeds of these character traits, the more we will reap their benefits, and they will become who we are. It is a daunting task to constantly sow these seeds, but by doing so, they will eventually become a habit. For many of us, these seeds were planted in our youth, and we just need to nurture them. But for those whose soil is barren, they will need our help. This can be accomplished if we listen to the words Jesus spoke in today's gospel. When asked what the first of all the commandments was, Jesus replied, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." And the second commandment is just like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. To love God with everything we are and to love our neighbor as ourselves means that it is possible to follow Jesus as his disciples and be as he is. God calls us to be saints. It is up to us to choose who we will grow up to be. To quote St. Catherine of Siena, she said, "Be who God meant you to be, and you will set the world on fire." If we sow the seeds of good character, we will reap the rewards of eternal life. Next week, Father Michael will continue our Harvest Principle message, the message of money. Give, save, and spend. So please join us for Mass. And remember to use one of those I's that he talked about last week. Invite someone to the Mass as we continue to grow in our spirit alive. May God bless you.